all the listeners of Health Education Lecture Series. I am your host, Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathic consultant. My clinic address is 9701 Sarah N. Court, Dublin, California, 94568. Phone number 408 687 1899. I am here to deliver another lecture of Health Education Lecture Series. As you know, we are delivering these lectures in three languages. One day it was in Hindi, one day it was in Punjabi, and the other day in English. So yesterday it was in Punjabi, and today we will discuss all these things because many of the peoples, they do not understand Punjabi or Hindi. So they understand just only in in English. So we want to cooperate with all type of communities, all type of persons who can only understand, even our own community who born here in America. They do not under properly Punjabi or Hindi. That's why they understand in English. So my purpose is to convey this series of lectures, knowledge of health educations, knowledge of this life, how this life was created, to convey this message to all the communities, all the persons who can understand English, Hindi, or Punjabi. So, in this way, I would like to convey you that in our last lectures, we have already entered into the cell. And we already told you about that one. The inside the cell, after passing the membrane of the cell, inside the cell, whatever it is visible to us, that is known as cytoplasm. And that cytoplasm has many more contents that's known as organelles. All these organelles are performing various duties, various functions for the go of normal life, which is relatively represented by the whole body. Whatever we see in the normal functioning of the body, or whatever we see in the diseased functioning of the body, it's all depend upon the cell functioning, basically the cell organelles inside one cell. So we have calculated, we have named many of the organelles which are situated in this cytoplasm. And regarding the cytoplasm, I have described you that cytoplasm is a type of environment where all the organelles can survive and can function normally. And I compare this environment just like our environment of air, and we have a regular pressure of 480 millimeter of mercury. All the time this pressure exerts on us, but that pressure is not felt by us. We feel normal in that pressure, but when that pressure is decreased, even when we go to the heights on the hills, we cannot feel that pressure. And that is why there is a lack of oxygen, concentration of oxygen. That's why we are unable to breathe normally at the heights. And whereas at the normal ground level, we can breathe normally because the concentration of the oxygen is more in the ground levels. And that pressure is also maintained, whatever is desired for our body. Then we feel normal in that way. In this way, same way, I also give you one example of the water. And the all the animals, living organisms living inside the sea in water, and they also have their own environment in the water, and they can take their oxygen, though they are also surviving on the oxygens, but they are getting the sufficient oxygens into the water from the water, because water itself is H2O, two parts of hydrogen, one parts of oxygen. there is oxygen, they need less oxygen, and they are able to, their body is designed like that they are easily can derive the oxygen which is required for their survival. So in this way, that is their environment in the water. Whereas if we go inside the water, just like I told you, if you go on height, you cannot breathe normally because there is less concentration of the oxygen. In the same way, when we go to the sea inside the water, we are unable to survive longer because we cannot take more oxygen from that water. And even if that water goes in a large quantity inside our body, it will stop functioning of all the systems. So means that environment is not suitable to us. And similarly, for giving these examples, my purpose is to convey you that inside the cell there is a particular type of environment in the cell, and that is known as cytoplasmic environment. So cytoplasm has a type of concentration of lipids and fats, proteins, and which maintains a consistency, a jelly type consistency. It is maintained, and with which all the organelles which are living inside the cells can survive normally and can function normally, whatever their duty is. So, in this way, when we entered into the cell, and I told you, if this cytoplasm is defective, if that environment has been changed, then it is very difficult for the organelles living inside and working inside this cytoplasm that they can work normally. And automatically it will be resulted in a changed behavior of our life, maybe disease, sickness, whatever we can call it later on, depending upon the symptoms, what type of symptoms it is representing. If more organelles are defective, which are responsible for the air, which more responsible organelles for the movements, and all these things are effective, means whatever the organelles are inside the cell and whatever are not now working because of the changed environment inside the cells, those functions are disturbed, and they are shown in a large scale on the body, in the body functions. And for this one, I have already given you the examples of projector. When there is something, one spot you see uh, on the screen, and if you move the screen here and there, you cannot remove the spots permanently until and unless you go to the projector and you go to the film which is situated inside the projector, and unless we eradicate that spot from that film inside the projector which is running, we cannot remove the spot which we are visualizing on the screen. In this way, body is a type of screen. You can understand that if ever there be any spot, any change inside any organelles of the cell, means inside the cytoplasms, whatever they have changed, they are the pictures, you can say, running inside the projector. And if ever their environment is changed, if ever their functioning is changed, it is represented by a damaged or altered functions inside the body. And inside the body we can see it's a large picture. It's a large picture is visualized on the body, whereas it is in the smallest quantity inside the cell. But it starts from there. Just like in the film, in the projector, spot may be a tiny spots, which is not possible to see even by the microscopes. But when it is damaged and it's not normal, and under those conditions, when a light passes through that film and through the projector, it is visualized on the screen. It shows a large enlarged area of the spots. The same way, whatever the changes occurs inside the cytoplasmic organelles, that is shown, that is represented in our body in a type of damaged system, one or the both or many symptoms. It can represents itself. So how it was changed, this cytoplasm was changed. And I told you, I give you another example for this one, that Cytoplasm, you can just mention like a milk, or milk has its own consistency, and all the organelles are normally working inside that consistency of the milk of the cytoplasm, basically. In milk, I'm mentioning just to let you know, to understand all these things. So ultimately, if milk has lost its consistency, just like we put something, renin or any type of chemical, ultimately that will change the consistency. The water will be separated from the milk, and the solid materials of the milk will be separated. In this way, the organelles cannot work even in the solid materials, solid state of the milk, and also the organelles cannot work in the liquid type of watery type of that milk. Means that has been changed. In both the condition, it is difficult for those organelles inside the cell to work normally and to produce a normal life, which is representative in presented on the body by the disease symptoms. This is what the normal explanation I have given you. And after that, I have told you about the organelles. Whenever you are entering into that environment, that is the cytoplasm, first of all, you recognize a big organelles, a big thing, round thing, which is visible in that cytoplasm under the microscope, that is known as nucleus. And that nucleus, in this way, that nucleus is the largest organelle inside the body, and largest organelle inside the body is known as nucleus. So this nucleus itself is also a double layered membrane, just like we told in initial stage that the cell has a double layered membrane, and we have given the description of that cell membrane, and how the things are going inside the cell from passing through the cell membrane, how the things are going outside as a garbage from the cell membrane. That has already been described in our previous lectures. And ultimately, I'm telling you that the nucleus is also having a double layered membrane, the covering wall outside the inside organelles which are living inside the nucleus. The same way, they under this wall, nuclear wall, you can say, there is again a different kind of environment that is known as protoplasm or nucleoplasm. So one and the same thing. So that has also a jelly-like substance, and in that jelly-like substances are the organelles, or the stuff which is preserved inside the nucleus remains safe. And if that nucleoplasm is changed in its consistency, then these preservations inside the nucleus will not be normal. And ultimately, many more different changes may occur inside this nucleus, which is represented by the body in a large scale. And I have told you about those things. I can just describe you. And the first of all, the responsibility of the nucleus was to maintain the growth, maintain the genetic reproductions, maintain the metabolic rate of the body and productions and everything. And in all the organs, because there are 9 systems, and every system has their organs, and every organ has their cells, and these cells are having their own nucleus. Ultimately, we reach to the nucleus, and if the nucleus is disturbed, then the growth of the body will be disturbed. Then the reproductive portion, just to create life from life, the reproductive portion will also be defective. In this way, the function of the reproductive portion on one side is to produce DNA and RNA. To synthesize RNA is the main function of this nucleoplasm inside that one, but that will be disturbed automatically. And ultimately, the metabolic, the whole thing, what I told you, the growth, reproduction, synthesizing of RNA, making of ribosomes, everything, all together it is known as metabolic rates. So they maintain the metabolic rates inside the nucleus of any cell, means that will not be normal. So ultimately, our metabolism of the body will not remain normal. In this way, this is the main function of the nucleus. I told you lastly in my last lectures that this is a type of envelope, and this is a type of organelle inside the cell which has a important preservations inside it. Many important things are preserved over there. Just like I told you, DNA, desoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, ribonucleic acids, all these things are maintained, and then they are responsible for the procreations. Then they are responsible for transmitting the genetic character to the next generations. How was my father, how was my grandfather, what type of diseases they were having, what type of mentality they were having, that may be transmitted through these RNA, DNA to the next generation, and may go through me to my own next generations. In this way, this is a main important role of the nucleus, is to maintain and characterize the generations to generations. Means it has genes. Next thing we can say, it has genes inside, and which are responsible for that one. uh, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes, I have already told you, and every chromosome has hundreds of genes, and every gene has a different characteristics. Sometimes it happens that a person, even in the twins, or even the siblings, sisters, brothers, and everything, all the persons are not having the same disease which their father was suffering. And out of those all multiple siblings, one may have some type of disease which his father or his grandfather was having. It depends upon the genetic character, genes, because in one chromosome there are multiple genes, and every gene has its own characteristics. And when the cell division comes for the new generations, that be transmitted one or the more new generations. And one or the more generation means more than one, or one person may represent the diseases which their forefathers were suffering. In this way, all these things are preserved and maintained by the nucleus. So this is a big important thing in our cell, and that is why this is a safe, you can say. In other words, you can say this is a safe, just like in our home, our safe, they have registries that have our gold medals, everything. All these things are preserved in a safe area. The same way, this nucleus inside a cell is a safe which preserves the genetic characters, which preserves all the necessary things to transmit to the next generations. So all these things are preserved in the nucleoplasm or the protoplasm inside the media. You can say the inside the media of the nucleus. And ultimately, if this nucleoplasm is not normal, just like I told you the example of milk, or the environment, our environment inside this air we breathe in, or environment in the heights, or environment in the water. So same way, nucleus has its own environment that's known as protoplasmic environment. And that protoplasmic environment is also a jelly-like substance, and it contains many different files, it contains many different other organelles which have their different responsibility. Just like I told you, in the cytoplasm of the cell there are many more organelles, and they are assigned different duties, and they do that. And their large scale representations is represented by the body. If they are wrong, what function was performed by one organelles, if that organelle is wrong, that is represented in a large scale in our body, and we diagnose it as a disease. We diagnose that this system is not working normally, and the name of the disease is this one. In this way, at large scale, this is shown up. So now, if in short, I can give you that the or a nucleus is performing a function to transmit the characteristic of the previous generation to the forthcoming generations, and also to maintain the expressions, also to maintain the cell division, so that all the preserved characters inside the nucleus may be transmitted equally to all the next coming generations. But sometimes it is not possible because in one chromosomes there are multiple genes. Therefore, sometimes during the cell divisions, some of the genes may not having that type of characteristic to produce some type of diseases which their fathers were having. But some of the genetic characters may transmit this type of character to the next coming generation. Suppose a father is having, just I can make it easy. A father is having diabetes, or the forefather was having diabetes. Sometime it happens that your grandfather was having diabetes and your father is not having diabetes, and ultimately the third generation may have diabetes because those chromatin threads, those divisions of the nucleoplasm has given that kind of character in their in their genes. And those genes, when they are divided, they are not having the equal divisions sometimes because of some defects. And suppose there are four siblings. Even one may have the diabetes, all three will be normal. It is possible. Or it is also possible that all the four will be having diabetes. In this way, this nucleoplasm, it is the responsibility of this one. When the cell is dividing, multiplying, ultimately all the characters should be transmitted equal to the next generations. But because of the defects, it is not possible. It is not possible. And it is also not possible. Everything is healthy. Everything is healthy, and it is not transmitted healthy condition to the next generations. Next generation may suffer from those conditions which their forefather was not having, just like diabetes. I told you there are many more cancer, many other type of conditions, arthritis even, and many of the autoimmune diseases their forefathers were suffering. Sometimes the middle generation is not having any symptoms of that one, but the third generation is producing those type of conditions. And sometimes it is possible all the forthcoming generations are having the same type of symptoms. Or it is also possible that only few genes were having that characteristics, and when the cell divided, those do not go to all the four siblings, and they are free from the disease. They are not having that kind of disease. This was the research of Dr. Harbin Khurana on the cell. He's still doing scientists are after Harbin Khurana. They are still doing the same research on the cell, that how we can avoid these kind of genetic diseases to come forward or to be transmitted to the next generations. They are working on it. So next time I told you about this one, this nucleus, because it's an important organelles. It is important organelle inside the cell. So in this way, if this thing is not normal, under those conditions, if it affects the mental faculties, if it affects the mental faculties, then Alzheimer's, then it affects the muscular range. That produces the Parkinson type of disease. It produces the lateral sclerosis type of disease. ALS is recognized in coordination with from the brain and the your musculatures. Brain wants to pick up cup of tea, but your hand, your musculatures do not cooperate with that. Just like your grandson brings the tea for you, and he give, okay, dad, take this cup of tea, and you are trying to capture that cup of tea. Ultimately, it hits the cup of tea because you do not want to, but there is an incoordination within the brain and your musculatures, and that waste. In this way, these type of conditions are known as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Alzheimer's deals with the mental faculty, and Parkinson deals with the musculatures, and LS also, and type of autoimmune disease, when your own protecting power of the body, because there is a protecting power, there's a immunity, you can say it. Our own immunity is fighting with us, just like simple example I can give you. Police, for what? Police is protecting our rights. Police is there to maintain the harmony in the society. But if police is more than the required number in one society, they will create another problems. In this way, if there is an autoimmune disease, means our WBCs, and there are different kinds of WBC: neutrophil, basophil, eosinophil, monocyte, large monocyte, basophil. There are many more type of military or security officers, security departments, and if they are increased in number more than normal, which is required by our body, they will produce autoimmune type of diseases, and that is also transmitted from the nucleus core, from the nuclear site of a sense. In this way, muscular problems, in this way, GIT, gastrointestinal problems, in this way, the bladder problems, especially in case of old people's, cancerous type of developments. All these things happens because the nucleoplasm has been damaged and it is not in its normal consistency. That is why all other organelles which are preserved inside the nucleus are not working normally, are not preserved normally. That is why when the cell divides, the damaged part of these organelles are supplied furthermore, and they again grow in a damaged conditions. In this way, many birth defects, people suffer with, just like cleft lip, cleft plate, and many other problems. There are, we call it anomalies. When a child borns, we assume that he has been perfectly made inside the mother's womb within 280 days. But when he comes out, we see there are many more defects, structural defects, which we see, which is not normal. There are intestinal defects, there are urinary defects, that is phimosis known as. There are lip cleft, that is a cleft lip or cleft plate. I have already described all these diseases, what happens in all these diseases, but when I will come again, I will describe all these things. But I'm just telling you about the nucleoplasm, that if the nucleus is not working normally, then these things can happen to any persons, and can be transmitted to one generation to the other generations. And after that, this was my previous lectures. I'm just giving you the briefings of that one in English. It has been already described in Hindi and also in Punjabi. There were different examples I have given in Punjabi and Hindi. Most of the people understand those Hindi and Punjabi medias, but in English medias, some of the examples we cannot quote here because they do not understand those examples which are generally spoken, which are generally understood in my language, in Punjabi or in Hindi. Next thing, we described about the mitochondria, the major important when we came out from the nucleus. Now we are in the cytoplasm. The first big organelle was the nucleus. We described the nucleus, and after that, we came outside into the cytoplasm, that environment inside the cell. And the second big thing we see, and second important thing we see over there, that is the mitochondria. In other words, I can say the powerhouse, just like electric powerhouse. eh? And that electric powerhouse supplies the power, then every organism, everything can work normally. And if there is no electricity, you can say that tube will not work, and you cannot irrigate your fields. The same way, if there is no light, there will be darkness in your home as well. And even the most of the organelles, the machineries are working with this electricity, will not be able to work. In this way, everything will be stopped in darkness. Though everything is existing, everything is existing, but is unable to perform his duty, his assigned duties. It means digestive system is there, but it cannot digest. Circulatory system is there, it's slowing down, it's not able to work accordingly, and it is not supplying the blood. Ultimately, it's very critical conditions when the mitochondria are not working. So these mitochondria mostly, first of all, supply or effect on the brains. In my previous lectures, I have told you about the brain and circulations. The most of the blood, means two-thirds, if we divide the total blood which is pumped out from the heart of the left side ventricle of the heart, pumped out for the body, and we divide it into three portions, the two portion of that blood directly goes to the brain because we need more. That's the main office to run all the functions inside the body. That is responsible. That is why two portions of that bloods are supplied to the brain. And you know that the blood is supplying the food materials, blood is supplying the oxygens. It means everything in double. Everything in a double is supplied to the brain, and that brain needs more oxygen, that brain needs more food materials. Ultimately that needs more protection, just like our immunity. I have just told you about the neutrophils and all that. So that is why the god has set up, or the nature has set up our body in designed in this way, that two part of the blood will go to the brain and one part will go to the whole body. So in this way, if you just imagine there is no electricity and this circulatory system is not performing, how much light you can produce without the electricity, when you are depending on the electricity, when you are totally depending on the electricity, and if there is no light, ultimately the work function will be very, very low. It will not be 100%, it will not be 50%, it will not be 25%, very low functioning. In this way, the survival chances are very less. We cannot survive because the most important organs, respiratory organs, circulatory organs, even if you do not eat food for 2 3 days, it's okay. There are many more persons who survived for 81 days without food. There, you can survive, but ultimately it will slow gradually. Whereas when the mitochondria are not working, then it's a sudden fall. It's a sudden fall. Oxygen is not supplied, food, blood is not supplied, and ultimately everything will be stand still. And this supplies the musculatures. Your hand is here, you want to do something, but you are unable to. You want to pick up your pen to write down, you cannot, because it is not supplied. Yani, it depends upon the quantity and quality of the mitochondria, how far they are damaged and how far they are active and they are competent to perform the duties. How much light is coming to us, electricity is supplied to us, how much we need it. It depends on that ratio, that how much is damaged. In this way, the function of our body will be destroyed. In this way, if we see the symptoms, I told you it affects the brain, first of all, it affects the musculatures, it affects the major organs, that the liver, lungs, heart, all these things are affected at a major portions. And you can say about these organs, life is not possible. It's very difficult. Ultimately, suppose if it happens, suppose mitochondria are not working. These where these are, I have told you about that one previously, but I can repeat it. Where these mitochondria are in the cell, just like one cell, unicell, that is spermatozoa, sperms inside our semen. Sperm has head, neck, body, tail. Then we can say that sperm is active and motile. And this active and motile condition of the sperm depends upon the mitochondria, which is situated in the neck. Head has all the nuclear power, that is DNA, RNA, whatever it is, the characteristics, it preserves inside, and ultimately it is thrust, pushed out if there is a normal mitochondria. And those mitochondria are situated next to head of the sperm in the neck. And that gives power forward, that gives power backward to the body, and that his body and the tail can move. If you see sperms in the microscope, you will see the body and tail is moving. And in this way we can understand how far if the spermatozoa, just like for the normal pregnancy, we need 80% active motile sperms. That description I have already given. There's a big description I have given, how why these sperms are needed that much, and why their numbers are produced 120, 150 millions in one ejaculations. That has been described. But I can just give you about the mitochondria description, that if the mitochondria are not normal, this movement of the spermatozoa, not only the spermatozoa, every cell, in every cell, this is the condition. Spermatozoa, I'm just giving you example that this is a cell. In this way, all the cells, if their mitochondria are not working normally, they cannot perform normal function. They cannot move forward, and they cannot do the function which is assigned to them. In this way, the first thing is lack of energy, weakness, easily tired. Persons are easily tired. They cannot perform the assigned duty which they were already performing previously. They were having normal, but now suddenly the light has gone. Suddenly their mitochondria, one or the other, I will tell you the reasons. And this mitochondria is not working. In that conditions, ultimately sudden weakness will be theirs. Energy and sudden weakness of the muscles, sudden weakness of the brain, it produces fatigue. And if the oxygen is not supplied to the brain normally, then this is known as dementia, a type of unconsciousness, pagalpan, or this type of conditions happens. And also, if light is coming intercurrently, life sometimes suddenly comes. Under these conditions, the mitochondria is not supplied the normal food, and that's why the mitochondria is not working normally. Maybe they are defective, maybe they are not supplied the energy whatever they need. Ultimately, the diseases like epilepsy, like stroke, like seizures, because epilepsy itself is a seizure, but there are different kind of seizures, just like tetanus seizures, and there are many more other seizures by clotting inside the blood. People fall down by head, and they are having seizures. Blood clots inside the brain, they can cause seizures. So there are many more conditions of the seizures, but these seizures are produced and are the indication that the mitochondria inside the cell has been damaged, is not performing normal duties. And when this duty inside the muscles is not normal, then one other condition, very astonishing condition, that is known as ataxia. Ataxia is a condition in persons, mostly we see in middle aged peoples, if they are having some type of sexual type of diseases, and ultimately their mitochondria are damaged, there are many other things are damaged, and ultimately a condition comes which is known as ataxia. And this condition is, suppose if a person is walking straight, he is walking straight on the road, and if you say him, okay, turn right, turn left, he is unable to. He is unable to move right or left, but he can move straight forward. Suppose if you handle him, and then you turn his face to the right, then he can turn to the right. So this is the condition which is known as ataxia, and mostly it comes after the sexual type STD, sexually transmitted diseases. Many of the diseases can cause this type of conditions, and the backside history is that the mitochondria are damaged. Electricity, power, light producing thing, energy producing thing has been damaged. And the same way, mostly the old peoples, just like of my age, they are having hearing loss, vision loss. Persons are suffering after, most of the people, their parents are not having diabetes, but after 50 or after 60, they are having diabetes. These are all indicative of that in the backside, energy is not produces in a normal quantity, means the mitochondria is damaged. Mitochondria is not performing their normal duty because it is not supplied by the power from the backside. Now, How you can recognize this thing? How you can recognize the mitochondria? If this much is important in the cell, when you see in the microscope, this mitochondria is a type of type of rods, just like tubules, just like some small tubes. You can see that, and their color is red. If you see in the microscope, their color is red, and these are just like the capsules, small capsules, red types, and they are floating inside the cytoplasm. From here to there, wherever it is required, they can move in this way, and they continue moving in this way. But if their shape is not normal, if they are not in normal consistency, whatever they need, then ultimately these kind of conditions are produced, and they are seen as a disease inside our body. The ataxia, epilepsy, stroke, seizures, loss of hearing, loss of visions, diabetes, all these things, when these occurs after a certain age, it is indicative that now the gradually the mitochondria is going out of order. But sometimes, because of injury, because of accident, because of some previous diseases, this mitochondria may be damaged before this age or in early ages. And that's a different condition. That is different causes. And we have to find it out. What are the causes when a person becomes deaf and dumb in the early ages? What happens when a person becomes diabetic? Their parents were not diabetic. Their grandfather was not diabetic. They are having this thing, cancer. A person is having cancer, male or female, whatever, and then we doctor inquire the history. Have you heard about your mother? Was she having any this kind of conditions of cancer or this type? No, she was not. Sometimes they say yes, and ultimately then we trace it from that area. And if sometimes his mother was okay, his grandmother was okay, his every forefather was okay. They were not having any tint of cancerous diathesis, and ultimately one is having diathesis. That also depends upon the genetic characters. I told you about that one. Chromosomes are having multiple genes, and every gene has a different type of character. They preserve the diseases. They preserve the behaviors, all these things from the previous generation they preserve. And what type of genes have gone to what sibling, he will produce that kind of a disease. Otherwise all other will remain safe. And if all the, it depends upon how many genes. In one chromosome there are 23 pairs of chromosomes. In one chromosomes, sorry, in one gene there are in one chromosome multiple genes, and in those genes how many are defective, how many are defective, it depends upon that graveness, seriousness of the disease in the next generation depends upon how many genes were defective. If it's one or two, maybe transmitted into one or two of the other generations, and all other siblings will be okay, all brother sister will be okay, only one may suffer, only two may suffer. It depends upon that one. So ultimately, so this structure is a rod type structure, just like a tube, just like a red color of the lightning tube. You can see that, and they are moving inside the cell if you see it into the microscope. And as you know, every organelles inside the cell, most of them are having double laid on it to separate it from the cytoplasmic solution. Cytoplasmic solution is a liquid type of solution, jelly like solutions, but they are separated organelles, and they are separated by double layer membrane, just like I told you about the nucleus. The same way, mitochondria are rod type, small type of capsule, and they are red in colors, and they are having also inner and outer layer covering inside that. In this way, the function, already you know that the function of this thing is to produce energy, to regulate metabolic rates. And you know about that metabolic rates. I told you how much you earn, how much you spend. This is whole everything. how much energy is produced inside the body, how much of our functioning of the organs is going on. There is a ratio, there is a limit, and that depends, that ultimately count as a whole how much they produce the waste, how much they use the energy, and how much they produce the functioning. It depends upon that. The total calculation is known as metabolism. Just like we earn $5, we spend $3, two are preserved. That increases the metabolic rate. But if you are earning $5, spending $7, ultimately you will decline. You will decline in energy. You will decline all the different. There are 9 systems working inside the body, and all the 9 systems will produce similar type of symptoms. Gradually, one by one, every system will show you the declining of a function in this ratio. So this is what the function of cell. After that, the main function is also just like, and now a person is dead, and you buried him. We, the sick people, they buried in by woods and all that. But now there are electric things, and they go dead body and they put it into cell, and the switch is on, body is burnt. In this way, the second function of this electricity of this mitochondria is to discharge off to the dead cell, or you, in other words, you can say to remove the garbage from the cell. It's all ash. All the woods of the dead body, everything, when it's burned, it becomes ash. It becomes small portions, and the small portion is evacuated from the cytoplasm, from the cell membranes, by increasing the pressure inside. And second example of this one, the most important example I have already given you about the skin. There are there are some glands, when a solid material circulating inside the blood as a garbage and is not evacuated by stool, by urine, by sweating, by breathing. If the excess garbage is not removed by this kind of condition, and the garbage is circulating inside the blood, that goes to the skin, and ultimately the skin has its arrangement, and they are known as apocrine glands. Just like you cut the grass in small pieces for your to graze the cattle and all that. You cut that one, there are apocrine glands. They cut that in pieces, chop that one, chop that in small, that they are dissolved into the blood, into the liquid what portion of the blood, and then they are excreted through the sweating. This thing happens when some of the toxins, some of the garbage is a toxin type of things, and ultimately if this is removed, people start scratching inside the body, or they are producing some eruptions, redness, everything on the skin, because the toxic is released by the sweating in this way. So the second example is this one. The first example I'm giving you, in each and every cell inside our body are having a mitochondria, and the function of the mitochondria is to generate electricity to all the, so that all the function, all the organs can come and work normally. But ultimately the cell dies, because we know basically every cell has its own age, and that is 120 days. Cells are produced inside the long bones, long bone marrow. They produce the different kind of cells of our body, RBCs, WBCs, and all these things. And ultimately, they are traveling to the blood when they are matured. And every cell survives for 120 days. After that, regularly they die, they become garbage. New cells take up their place. And ultimately, this is the function of this mitochondria, that that converts this dead cells, dead materials, into ashes, and dissolve it into the liquids, and throw it out into the blood circulations. So this is also the major important function of this one, mitochondria. And if it is not there, suppose if the garbage we are not removing, what will happen? There will be gas all around, which is not required by us. We need oxygen, and it will produce nitrogenous gases. And it is difficult for us to breathe in that one. In this way, cell will die, more cell will die as compared to the normal conditions. And because production is limited, bone marrow is producing cells in a limited quantity. It has its own speed, maybe accelerated, maybe because by diet we can accelerate the speed of developing the cells inside the bones, and but they are having limits. But if the more cells are dying and they are converted into ashes, garbage, then it is the responsibility of the mitochondria to convert it into ashes, just like I told you about the skin, and to evacuate from the cell into the circulations. And then ultimately that blood circulates and go into the kidney. Kidney removes it through the urine. That blood goes also to the intestines. Most of the garbage is removed by the stool and all that thing. In this way, most of the garbage goes to the skin, and it is removed by as a sweating. So this is all the function of mitochondria, to give light, to give energy to all the systems so that they can work normally. Now, the last thing is, if it happened, then what we should do? At least we have to survive. Why the medical science is there? What is the purpose of that one? And what we can do? The first thing, to oxidate, we will open our windows. We will open whatever can give light from the outside in our home, so that something is better than nothing. If our light, electricity is not there, we will open the windows so that light can come inside our home. The same way, how the light will go, how the outside the light will go inside, that is exercise. Exercise. So first thing is the exercise, and you have to do the exercise to maintain the damages of the mitochondria. Second thing, to supply the diet so that the damages of the cell is recovered by the bone marrow, so that they can produce normal and healthy cells and in more speed as compared to the normal, or to compensate the loss of the damaged cells. The ratio is damaging. There's a ratio that at this ratio the cells are going to be damaged. Normal, 120 days one cell should survive. One cell has its age 21 days. It has to die after that. That's a normal routine. But if the cells are dying before that one, then what we need to do? We need to do produce more cells. How we can produce more cells? How we can accelerate this function? That is done by the bones. And then we have to supply those type of foods which can give more energy than the bones, and the bone marrow can produce more active cells, and also in big speed, in large speed, in more speed. In this way, so that we can compensate that loss. So this is the second thing. And after that, avoid all type of toxic things. People are addicted to many things. Even the tea we are addicted to. But if a person is having this kind of conditions, yes, we should avoid. These are not the normal foods. These are just to give just afim, opiums, alcohol, and there are many more opioid things and many more things people are using nowadays. And even the medications we are taking. Why you say, oh, I'm allergic to this medicines? But this is outsider food. This is not normal food for our body is not accepting that one, and that produces a type of toxicity inside our body. So avoid all type of foods which you are taking. Avoid one time all type of toxic medicines which are damaging your cells and the mitochondria as well, so that you can recover the damages, and you can maintain the production of these cells, and also the mitochondria in those cells in a normal quantity, compensate the loss in this way. So second thing is to avoid all those things which are damaging all these things. And after that, mostly, when you know that, some toxin is inside the body, or we are providing the toxin day to day in our day to day meal. We do not understand. In my previous lectures, I have given you the example of the causes, disease producing causes. Some causes are the exciting causes, some causes are the maintaining causes, some causes are the fundamental causes. And when I was talking about the maintaining causes, many things becomes a routine diet, and we do not recognize that it may cause any harm to us. But if already damage is going on, ultimately those things which are your routine in eating, just like I give you the example, tea. You take tea every day and you said, no, no, we are taking since birth, and it has become a part of our diet. But if taking those things in your diet which you are taking since your birth, but now you recognize that your mitochondria are not working normal, the electricity or the power is not produced inside the body, at least for one time, you have to remove all the toxins, even if it's necessary. You have to remove one time all the toxins, refresh it. Just like you can say, they refresh this thing and provide the energetic substances. Provide those, just like in other words, I will say, we'll come to the medicines. First of all, in spite of a medicine, you can come to the diet. Just vitamin B12, B6, B1. All these things are to repair, to supply more energy, to produce more cells. All these things are required at this time. And the composition, sometimes if you go to the Walgreen and all other medicine stores, you can see over there CQ10. You will see a label on the bottles, CQ10. It has all those compositions which can initiate more production of the cells. So that will give you more energy under these conditions when the more damages is there for the mitochondria. So to protect mitochondria or to regenerate more mitochondria, healthy mitochondria by the bones, then you need to supply this kind of food materials that is known as mitochondria. L-carnite, vitamins, arginines, all these things are over the counter. It's not that you need the prescription for this one. No, over the counter. Just like you can say the watermelon, hadwana. Watermelon you take, it produces citrulline, L-citrulline. That also helps to produce the more energy, help to produce to maintain the damages of the mitochondria. Simple thing. Simple. Your watermelon, if suppose another example I can give you, you came after working and you fell down on the bed or sofa. Oh, I'm tired, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Ultimately, take one glass of juice of watermelon, and in the next minute you will feel energy, because the citrulline which is produced, which is responsible for producing the healthy mitochondria, is inside the watermelon, also in the vitamin C. Second thing, and the last thing I want to tell you, that whenever energy inside heat, not energy, you can say the heat is produced more than the requirement. Our body heat is 98.4 degree. 98.4 degree Fahrenheit is the normal heat of our body. But if it is increased, we say fever. If it's less, we can say less. Subnormal temperatures. And ultimately, this thing, when who produces this thing? Vitamin C and vitamin B, these two type of vitamins are important vitamins which are destroyed easily. These are known as water soluble. Water soluble vitamins, easily dissolved into water and easily spread inside the body. Easily. So in this way, whenever you feel tired, whenever you see this thing, it means the energy is low. It means the mitochondria is not supplying the energy, not giving the full light which you need that one. And all the organelles which are responsible for activeness of body, they are not working because mitochondria is not working. In these conditions, you immediately has to take vitamin C in any case, vitamin B in any case, in any type, just like watermelon I told you, just like or orange juice I told you, because they are the immediate source. Vitamin C and B, when there is an increased heat inside the bodies, they are damaged first. But that's why in the summer area, doctor advise you, okay, take lemon juice, take orange juice. Why? They have vitamin C. Man, vitamin C, the heat is more as in the environment as well as inside your body, and it will destroy your mitochondria. That is why you need more vitamin C, you need more vitamin B. So this is supplied by your these things: watermelon, orange, lemon, all these things. You should continue use this, even not in summer, even in winter. If you are low in energy, you can use these things and they will produce you immediate energy, sudden energy. So I think today my time is over, and next day we will discuss about the other organelles inside the cell, which can produce many type of damages, which you can see as a diseases inside our body. uh, and they are in this. When I say cell, does not mean I'm talking about one cell. There are trillions of cells. Nine, this whole body is having nine system. Every system is having different organs. Every organ is having different tissues. Every tissue having a different type of cells, multiple cells, and every cell has these organelles. All these organelles: nucleus hai, mitochondria hai, centrosome hai, ribosomes hai, many things. Every cell has. Cell may be of a heart, cell may be of a liver, cell may be of a lung, cell may be of intestine. All these cells are having these type of organelles, and collectively, when these organelles are damaged and are not producing the normal workforce, then they are shown in our body in a large scale, and we diagnose the group of symptoms as a disease, just like I told you about the epilepsy, seizures, all the dementia, ataxia. All these things are the diseases, but these are produced backside from the damages inside the cell. And what organelle was damaged? That's the mitochondria. The same way, every organelle has some responsibility for the normal function of our body. So I will tell you next day about the other organelles. If they are damaged, what is their identification, what is their functions assigned to, and what they do inside our body, and if that function is not pursued normal, or why this function is not normal, then how you can correct that one. So everything will go side by side to this one. I am your host, Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathic consultant. My clinic address is 9701 Sarah and Court, Dublin, California 94568. Phone number 408 687 1899. My email address, homeomedicine, HOMEOMEDICINE @yahoo.com. Anytime, if you are suffering from any disease, you can call me for second opinion. Wherever you are, you can take treatment from there, but I can just guide you whether your treatment is going on the right lines or not. And if it's going on the natural way, on the right directions, it's okay. Continue the treatments. But if you are fed up from any treatments after a long time, you are not recovering. Ultimately, you can consult me, and you can call me at 408 687 1899. And the other request to all of you: if you feel these lectures are beneficial to the humanity, you can learn something, you can understand something which you were not knowing previously, please convey this message to your nearest and dearest, so that they can join me, my YouTube, Sabarang radio station, and Facebook media. Anyway, in any media, you can join me. There are many more other radios. They are demanding my lectures, just like Radio Pravas from New Jersey, and also one radio from Radio Punjab, and also radio from South Carolina. There are many more states. They are demanding my lectures, and I am giving them free for the community, so that people can understand what our body is made up of, how it functions normally, how it becomes sick, so that you can be healthy, you can remain healthy if you understand all these principles. Thank you for all. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow, I think my lecture is in Hindi. And Radio Parvaz from New Jersey will join with us at this time. It is always from 5 to 6 p.m. California Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Thank you.